I know this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fifth episode now of Bro Science Podcast. We first want to apologize because of the very few episodes and uploads being recorded lately. We just had a couple of technical difficulties, but now we're stronger than ever. We've talked about new topics and right, guys,
Yes, we are.
we're ready to go. Today we're joined by a guest. It's my good friend Babs. I've known him since I was, I don't know,
15.
like 15 years old, and we've been great friends since. He's a guy I admire a lot. He was the first guy that introduced me to everything that's self development and reading and listening to podcasts. So I'm extremely happy to have him here. He's also one
Yes.
of the smartest persons I know. He is a chemical engineering student, and he is very, very, very passionate about sustainability. And he's going to tell us a bit about what he's done and what he studies about and how he plans on changing the world for the better through his.
Mm,
Damn, I have to live up to a lot of hype. That was a great introduction.
that's Bob's man.
So hopefully I can answer some questions. Like Santi said, I study chemical engineering, and I would love to use that knowledge to do my part in making our economy more circular, changing the processes, and basically having a zero garbage world. That's the idea. But what do you guys want to know about? Should I just ramble on a little bit about sustainability? What are the key principles, or do you guys have any
What?
questions?
Yeah. What's your? So you see the future. You see your ideal future with this circular economy thing. Um, what does that mean? How would that be? In what ways would that be different to now?
Okay, so I'm gonna take it a little bit back and talk about three roads of sustainability. This
Yeah.
is according to the UN. I did not invent this. I'm just copying what they said. But basically, they're Santi. I want you to. There we
Ah,
go.
thank you, man. Thank you.
They're
Go ahead. Yeah.
basically three three pillars of sustainability: biodiversity conservation, that's protecting our ecosystems; cleaning up, that's all circular economy, just having a zero garbage world; and lastly, climate change. A lot of people, when they talk about sustainability, think, oh, recycling or something like that, or planting trees. But it's much more complex. You have these three pillars, and all of them are trying to solve different things because
Mm,
having better plastics, like, I don't know, having a zero garbage world does not mean you're going to solve climate change. They're totally different topics, but
yeah.
people usually group them. So when we're talking just
But
about
but
circular,
they are related in a certain way,
of course they are.
in a strong way. Yeah.
Of course they're related, but something people think, okay, climate change is a problem, and then a lot of policymakers, I'm sorry, Chile, but they say, okay, the climate change is a problem. We're going to recycle more. And it's like, dude, you didn't
Yeah.
understand like anything because
Mm, yeah. Like it's not enough.
it's not enough. So basically, when we're talking about the perfect future, a future of circular economy, have you guys heard of the concept before? Do you know what
Yeah. I
circular
have.
Which
economy?
concept, sorry?
Circular economy.
A circular economy?
Yeah.
You can go on and give a brief explanation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, it's changing the normal, traditional sense of the economy, which is extracting, making a product, and then throwing it away. And it's trying to reuse as much as possible uh, everything: plastics, metal, wood. Basically, we're reusing all our resources because they're finite, and we've been operating in the paradigm that everything is infinite, but it's not. So circular economy
Yeah.
basically is turning all the processes where you use the byproducts or the waste, and you find a way of reusing them, composting them, but basically having nothing end up in the landfills. That's the final goal. Like,
Yeah.
nothing
Can
gets
I
to
ask
the
a
landfills
question
because
in
everything's
regards to the
reused.
circular economy? Um, in my mind, right, the hardest thing wouldn't be, you know, the circular economy of raw materials such as wood, iron ore, whatever it is. It'd be the circular economy of energy. Do you have
Okay.
anything to say about that?
I think you broke up a bit. Could you repeat the
Yeah.
question?
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So in my mind, the most difficult part of the circular economy would be energy. Having
Okay,
energy go round in a circle as opposed to wood, a bike or whatever,
sure.
right? What do you know any or have any ideas on how energy can be used in a circular economy?
Sure. I mean, when I think about energy, I group it more in the pillar of climate change because basically, when we look at climate change, what we're saying is okay, we have a lot of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and all our emissions are emitted by basically five sectors: energy, food,
Hmm.
transport, industry, and others, basically.
Where's
So,
Yep.
mining included?
mining is an industry.
Okay.
So, industry, buildings, food, and agriculture, energy and transportation. Those are the big ones. And
Yeah.
energy is about a quarter of the emissions.
Hmm.
So more than circular economy, I think it more in the lines of climate change. And basically, what we need to do is find a way to eliminate fossil fuels because
Hmm.
that's the core, that's the bulk of the energy emissions. So how do you do
Yep.
that? Most of the studies just go straight to renewables, solar, wind, geothermal. Nuclear also has a big place
What
to.
Yep.
about nuclear economy? That's like 100% opposite to circular economy in the sense that you're actually destroying atoms, like the nucleus of the atoms, in ways that they can never be, they can never go back to what they were. So it's never a circular thing.
Right. With nuclear, the thing is, the technology has advanced so much that even though you have byproducts, there are safer ways to do it, and the byproducts you generate are way better than the ones you would do in a coal plant or a natural gas plant.
Yep.
But there is
Hmm.
a really interesting new technology being developed that is nuclear fusion.
Oh, so cool, bro. I love
That
nuclear fusion. Sick. But
have you guys heard
continue.
about it? I
Sorry.
mean, Savvy probably has, but nuclear fusion is the opposite of nuclear fission, where traditional nuclear reactors just break down atoms and that releases a lot of heat that boils water and you turn turbines with that. With
Yeah.
fusion, with nuclear fusion, what you're doing is you're basically taking two atoms and combining them, and you're basically creating a tiny sun. And I find that so badass. Like,
So
the
sick.
sun is the biggest energy source in our solar system, and you're basically
Yeah.
creating a tiny sun. And recently, last year, there was a breakthrough where they usually the experiments of nuclear fusion, they've put in more energy than they've gotten out, but recently they got more energy than they put in. So that's great. That's the first stepping stone in making this thing
How did that
commercial.
Yeah.
happen?
So there's different experimental places that are developing this technology. The biggest one is ITER. What I forget the name of the acronym, but I know ITER is the name of the biggest plant that's a lot of countries working together. But there's
Yeah.
Okay.
another private company. I think I forgot its name, but the private company I think is the one that made that breakthrough. There's a really
But
cool video.
so for fusion, we use particles accelerators, right?
Mm.
Yes.
Okay. And how did they use that to get more energy than they put in?
Okay, so what I understand about the nuclear fusion that works is that they have two sides where they inject these high energy molecules. They create plasma, and they had to control it with magnetic fields. It's really complicated physics. Even I don't understand it, and I've tried to study it. And then they collide the plasma in the center, and that fuses the atoms and creates a ton of energy.
Yeah.
But creating that plasma for them to collide takes a bunch of energy as well. So that's where you're putting in the energy and basically hoping that when the collision happens, you're generating more than you put in. And that, now, just recently, they've
It's
achieved that.
crazy.
But it's
But
really
where
complicated.
where does that surplus comes from?
Good
Okay,
question.
so
Uh,
basically,
it's
It's
when
all
tough
good if you
question,
don't know, by
man.
the way. I'm
no,
just
I
curious.
I kind of know the simplest the more simple way to put
Okay.
it, when two atoms combine, they just release a lot of energy because to stabilize, because everything in nature wants to
Yeah.
stabilize, and the bonds that are created when they're fused releases a bunch of energy because they enter a more stable state, because you have two atoms, they fuse, and they just release energy to enter a more stable state together.
Right.
That's how I understand it works. But maybe
But
somebody, a
sometimes
nuclear
that
physicist,
bond
is much more
requires
suggestive. I don't know.
energy, doesn't it?
Excuse me?
Doesn't that bond, to create that bond, most of the time you need to like take in energy?
Not necessarily. You can have
No?
exothermic or endothermic reactions, and it depends.
Okay. That's interesting because okay, let's go back a couple steps because we diverted from
Yeah.
what we were talking a lot. So what I was thinking on about nuclear energy is that you usually use uranium. There are different molecules that, sorry, atoms that you can use, but usually you use uranium for nuclear energy. And what you do is basically you turn the uranium in I forgot what, but you divide it to make it something else. So in terms of circular economy, or not, maybe not economy, but in terms of circular systems, we can never go back because we what's the word, fusion, what's the opposite of fusion, fission.
Yeah.
We divided the atom, and unless we do a fusion, we cannot make it back uranium. And I'm not sure we can make uranium back. I think that's something that only happens like in the
Hey,
nucleus
maybe
of
nuclear
different
fusion is the
stars and
solution to
suns.
nuclear fission. Who knows, man? Who
Yeah.
knows?
I think nuclear fusion, if it's done right, it could be such a cheap way to make energy because it's so efficient and you produce so much energy. And yeah, nuclear fission is not, it's not a renewable energy source, but it is clean because there's no CO2 emissions associated with it. So it's more
Right.
of something that could help us go down in our emissions and help with climate change, but not necessarily circular economy. Fusion is
Okay.
more circular economy, and
Yeah.
also let's not rule out solar, geothermal,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
wind, which I think are like the best energy. Something I want to mention that is super cool. It's the thing like I most love is
Hmm.
something called, talking about climate change, is something called Project Drawdown. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard about Project Drawdown before.
I
No.
haven't.
So drawdown basically is the point where emissions in the atmosphere stop
Okay.
growing and start coming down. So basically, since the industrial revolutions, our emissions have been growing, and we have greenhouse gases accumulating in our atmosphere, which is making the earth get hotter. This is what we
Hmm.
learned in school. And right now we're emitting, let's say we're emitting 100, we're capturing back like 60 because of the ocean and because of the forests. So 40 is, approximately 40 is getting stuck in the atmosphere. So it's accumulating and growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And drawdown is basically when this peak stops and we start taking out more than we're putting in. That's basically what
Hmm.
we're aspiring to. So Project Drawdown basically is looking for all the ways we can reach this point for it to stop growing and start pulling back greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, because a lot of people don't realize that, okay, imagine humanity stops emitting everything. All the greenhouse gases are still in the atmosphere and we need to pull them out. It's not like they're going to disappear
But
from a year to another.
they eventually would, wouldn't they? Because trees would start like cleaning the air.
Eventually, but that's never going to happen if we keep emitting what we're emitting right now.
Right. Yeah. No,
So
I was just saying in the hypothetical that we
yeah,
stop emitting, eventually it would get cleaner.
it would even out. Yeah. So basically, this thing called Project Drawdown is a institution. I don't know, it's a foundation or a company, but basically, they're looking at all the solutions across all fields, across all industries, to reach drawdown, and then to eventually take out more than we emit. That's the goal
Mm,
with climate change. We're talking about
yeah.
climate change is okay. Let's first reach drawdown so there's no more accumulation of greenhouse gases, and then let's start taking them out.
Mm,
So Project Drawdown has this really, real cool handbook. You can go to their website, and it's basically the top 80 solutions they found, and it's very cool because it has like the tons of CO2 it's capturing. It has what it's going to be worth. It has
yep.
the payback of that. And basically, could you guys guess what are the top 10 solutions? I don't remember all of them by head, but
Top
could you guys
10?
guess?
Oh,
What do you guys think?
Chavi, fixing refrigerator
Yeah,
coolers.
friction refrigerants.
That's one. That is one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bang.
That is
Chavi,
one. That's like
Why,
number nine, I think.
why is that so important?
no, because me and Chavi did a carbon literacy course once together,
No, no,
and that was
I'm
it surprised
I'm
us.
not
Like,
I'm not asking why it's important for you and Xavi. I'm asking
oh, shit, okay.
why is
Because
that important in terms of
Bro,
refrigerants
environment.
I'll tell you what, I'll tell
are
you
a
what.
very
But
powerful greenhouse
some,
gas.
sorry, you go.
Well,
Xavi,
Shaggy, you want to explain it? Be my guest.
you're still the sink, I think.
I'm still a sink. What?
The, yeah, you're not in sync with us. Like,
Oh, I'm not in sync.
No, but
Yeah.
yeah, you were about to explain greenhouse gases
Yeah, yeah.
from refrigerator coolers. Go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially, in the course, what we learnt like some of the worst pollutants, right? And like I don't know what were they? There was making roads. Roads was like terrible. What was some of like meat production? I guess agricultural transport, all the regular out of nowhere, right? The refrigerants, like, and the disposal of refrigerants and the greenhouse gases they consume while on, it's like top. Like, it's like, what?
Yeah.
But like
It's really-
keeping us in a temperate environment, so all the air cons in stadium or air conditionings in stadiums and in houses and heating and whatever is the like worst pollutant from memory, I think, or maybe not the worst, or top five in the world. Wild, wild.
it kind of makes
Uh,
sense. It's way easier to warm things up than to make them colder. Way
Yeah.
but
easier.
warming things up is also a part of that. I'm pretty sure. Like, but both. It's
Not necessarily.
refrigerant.
It depends how you warm the environment, though, because yes, if you use fire or any kind of combustion, then yes. But any kind of movement heats anything.
Yeah, but
So
like we're talking about the emission from things, not from us. So like I don't really. But then again, humans actually, fun fact, humans are also like really inefficient, in their consumption and stuff like that. Like we consume so inefficiently that that's also
Yeah.
a bad thing for the environment, if that makes sense. Like you don't really think about us, but anyways, yeah,
yeah, I think yeah for sure we're not the most efficient systems. Like
yeah.
if you
Need to
I
stop
remember I
eating
was
Macca's
hearing,
burgers.
for example, birds are also not the most efficient. They do not fly the most efficient way. And that's why it took us so long to create planes, because we were trying to imitate how birds fly. But then we discovered we maybe don't need to fly like birds do, and that's how they figured out how to make planes. We figured out, oh, we don't need to make wings and fly like them. We can use stronger materials. We can use iron. We can use metals. We
Mm.
can do
Wow.
something different. And I think that's just evolution, man. We are not, we don't have the best things. We just followed the evolution as it went, and that's how we arrived. But anyways, we were talking about
Yeah.
refrigerators.
So refrigerators, that's one of them, because to cool something down. So basically, what they use in refrigerators, the refrigerants are a very powerful greenhouse gas. So when
Mm.
they absorb energy from the sun, they absorb it really well, and they heat up really well the environment. So basically, they trap heat. Like,
Right.
Mm.
so actually, solution number 8 and 9, I think, was better refrigerants, like alternative refrigerants, and better disposal of them. Because sometimes people just like throw out things with refrigerants, and it just leaks out to the environment. And
Yeah, yeah. But if I'm not mistaken, the correct disposal of refrigerants is somewhat costly.
yeah, it is. That's
Yeah.
why we have to find maybe different refrigerants. Maybe if you don't have to dispose of them, but if they
Hmm.
somehow get out, it doesn't cause any damage, or it's a neutral substance. Okay,
Yeah.
so what else do you guys think are the top 10 solutions?
Go
You
vegan.
said one of them, the one Chevy said about like food production. Food production is it one of those?
Yeah, so basically, eating more plants and less meat is like number 5, I think,
Yeah,
on
I
the list
remember
of
that the
solutions.
most obvious ones were the ones that were the least contaminant, and that things like refrigerator coolers were surprisingly high.
Yeah.
Like the top
Yeah.
ones take you off guard, and you wouldn't expect it.
And I
Mm.
think also like I that's why I said it before. I think mining is a super big one, and we just can't stop mining. Like we need the minerals, we need the metals.
So the thing about mining is that it's not a big player in climate change, but it is a big player in biodiversity loss and circular economy. Because
Okay.
mining usually requires a lot of water, and in the case of Chile, in places where there's not a lot of water. So that's a whole problem, and the species that live in the desert also get affected.
Right.
But and also the big trucks use diesel, and that has some emissions associated with it, but they're not that big players in terms of CO2 emissions, but they are
Okay.
definitely big players in contamination in general, because a
Yeah,
bad
like
administrative mining operation can be terrible. That's why I love the idea of space mining. I've investigated a little bit of that. So basically, hopefully live in a future where to our grandkids it's like super weird to think of mining the earth, and we
yeah,
just send sentries to different meteors, because there's meteors that are just filled with gold or filled with platinum. There's meteors that have a bunch of different
diamonds.
minerals. Yeah, like things we use for cell phones. So basically, there could be a future, maybe we won't live to see it, but where they just send sentries or ships to mine asteroids and just bring them back to earth, and just leaving all our natural resources alone.
Well,
Mm. Yep.
Okay, so do you guys want to guess some more, or should I just tell you the ones I remember?
are they really surprising? Is that why you
Some
wanna?
some of them are. Some of them are.
Yeah. Go for it, man. Go
Go
for it.
from least contaminating to most contaminating,
Do you mean
if
like
you
the one
can.
that helps? I mean,
The,
I just remember like the top 10 that made the most impact. Like if
okay.
we do these 10 right, we're gonna do a huge difference in reaching drawdown. First, number 1 and 2 are just having a wide scale wind and solar energy production. Just investing more in solar energy, investing more in wind energy. That basically eliminates the needs for coal and natural gas plants, which have
Why
associated.
do you think that is not being done? Do you think it's like a political issue? Do you think it is like
Definitely,
it just isn't worth it?
it's definitely worth it. I think politics got very involved, especially oil. You know how corrupt the oil business is, and how they want to
Yeah,
stay in power and all that. But I for sure think it's not a it's not a thing of it's too costly, because actually in 2016 the unit of energy produced by renewables was cheaper than the unit of energy produced by non-renewables. So that's pretty
Interesting.
recent. I mean, 7 years ago we
Awesome.
crossed that threshold, and renewables, it's a newer energy than fossil fuels. So we basically have more innovation to come. But fossil fuels basically has innovated
Mm.
basically everything
You
it can
just
innovate, because it's a very old industry. So they already are stuck in some point, but renewables are just getting cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. So
It's true.
I think it's just a matter of time.
Mm.
Like if I were to invest, I would invest in renewables because it's a better bang for your buck.
Yep.
What
And
do you think about companies like Tesla, for example?
well, I don't know. You
Can
put me
I
on the
actually
spot right
speak on that
now.
as well? Tesla actually trigger me as an example, like annoy me. Like
Okay.
the reason why is because yes, Tesla have great cars and they're efficient, sure, but they're also playing into the consumerism, the pollution by consumption of buying the cars. Like you have to buy all these cars that it takes so much to produce, so much pollutants to produce, to then reduce your consumption. It doesn't make any sense. It's like consume more to produce less. It's like saying, "Hey, lose weight by eating more." It doesn't make this logic doesn't make sense. So,
What you just
not a
said
fan of
doesn't
Tesla
make
that
sense
much,
to
to
me.
be quite honest. Huh?
Uh, What you just said doesn't make sense to me.
But like, even though Tesla's more efficient when you're using it in its initial state, you have to buy the car, and
Yeah.
buying the car it takes a lot of materials, takes a lot of resources and pollution to make the car.
Okay, but compare that now to buying a regular car.
Okay,
No, but the
so
thing is, we
it's
just
your
don't need
first
to buy the
car.
cars. There's enough already. And that's the whole point of circular economy. That's the whole point of, you know, you're just putting another car out there for more people to buy cars, I
Yeah,
think.
but that using that car does contaminate a lot, and eventually they will get older, and you won't be able to use them because just components are not going to work anymore. Um, I think we have to find a way to use like older cars in another way, but I don't think stop the production of cars. It's a viable thing in
It's
the world we live in right now.
it is a complicated topic because a lot of car companies want to produce more cars and they want people to buy their products. So there's always new cars being developed. And to solve transport and to make transportation sustainable, we have to do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things. Making public policy so only electric cars are being produced from now forward.
Yeah.
Also, we can take a look into biofuels because there's a lot of cars that have internal combustion energy engines. And what's the problem with that is that they use a fuel that's non-renewable. They're taking something from the earth, they're processing it, and then making it fuel. So you're putting carbon in the atmosphere. But biofuels, there's biofuels based in seaweed. And seaweed, when it's produced, it's taking CO2 from the atmosphere, and then you're doing all this process, hopefully with renewable energy, and you're creating a biofuel. And if you can put that in a car, it's basically carbon neutral. It's still going to emit, but
Mm.
the source you're using is something that took CO2 from the atmosphere. But if we're
Right.
using oil, you're just taking something out that wasn't there. So biofuels is an option to keep using some of the cars we have and having a more sustainable option. And yeah, electric definitely is going to be a big player. I get what you're saying, Chavi, but I have seen studies that over a long period of time, the pollution of that extra car does net out with the less emissions you're emitting because of using electricity instead of fuel. Like after
Yeah.
7 years, it does net out. Something else we have to do,
Mm-hmm.
we still need to apply a circular economy to cars. I mean, taking the car, melting it, reusing that metal, reusing the tires, and that's an awesome challenge. Like something I love about sustainability is that we have a lot of cool challenges to solve. You can
Yeah.
pick you can pick whatever you want. So Project
So
Drawdown
cool.
has these 80 solutions. 80 solutions we need to implement to reach drawdown. Pick the one you like the most and go for it. Like there's
Mm.
basically something for everyone. Solution number 5 or 4, I forget, was sexual education in developing countries like Africa,
Wow.
in I mean continents, and Africa and
Why is
Asia.
that?
Sexual education, that means people are having less kids. Instead of having 7 kids, they have 2, and just the reduction of people that would bring equivalates to a bunch of emissions. And that's like number 4 or 5. That's something nobody's talking about. Just sexual education.
Crazy.
And if people want to have more kids, okay, but basically a lot of the kids that are born are from a lack of sexual education. So that's
Yeah.
pretty
Okay. Makes
interesting.
sense.
And also, when countries are developing and they want to have better opportunities and they know life is expensive, and you teach them that, they probably will choose to have less kids so they can give them a more quality life.
Yep.
And all of that leads to less emissions. So I found that crazy to learn. So
Yeah, it's
maybe
unreal.
getting to education, like people may think, I don't know anything about science or engineering, and how can I solve climate change?
Mm,
You can do your part with sexual education. You can do your part with eating a little bit less meat. That's also a big one, like more plant-based diet or alternatives of meat, because I really like the taste of meat, but unfortunately, it's very inefficient. You have to feed a cow a lot of food for it to
yep.
produce a kilogram of meat. But
Mm.
things like fish, chicken, insects are much more efficient. Like insects are basically the most efficient thing at turning.
Martin is screwed, man.
We
We're
have
gonna have
some bags.
protein bars
We have some
basically.
story with the insects.
Yeah,
Bro, do you remember the time when you tried to freaking eat those insects, Martin?
Yeah, I do. We have some stories with insects with these guys.
We went to the most disgusting food museum in Sweden, and there's a bingo you do. You go one by one in this bar that you're served like different disgusting foods, and
Yeah.
there's a whole section that's just insects. And guess who was able to complete the whole disgusting foods bingo? Me and Chavi, and who couldn't? Martin, because he ate everything from the spiciest hot sauces in the world to a shark skin, but couldn't eat a damn cricket, man.
I did.
crickets are
No. I
tasty.
did eat the cricket. I did eat the cricket.
Crickets are tasty.
No, it was good, man. The cricket was
It
good.
was really good, man.
Nicely cooked cricket, and you can process it into like cricket flour, and
And the
then
protein, Pops was telling me just before, like how
Yeah,
efficient it is to make protein out of insects.
it's super
Cricket
efficient.
flour is goaded. Like, it's
yeah,
actually
like
gains.
Yeah.
let's go. Let's start a company right now. Like let's go.
I've actually wanted to on cricket flour. No joke. It's
We'll talk after this.
Haven't you talked to me about it before, Chavi?
Should
Yeah,
we stop recording and start talking
yeah.
business?
Let me get this
Let
model right
me
now.
get the whiteboard out.
Like,
I'll get
let
the
me catch some
whiteboard.
crickets and let's get going.
I'd
oh
actually
man.
be down for that.
Yeah, it's an incredible.
It's the
idea.
future. Like
It's a good challenge. There's so much stigma around eating insects.
and that's in Western countries. Like there's a bunch of
Yeah,
countries that eat insects. So we think, oh, it's so gross, and there's like 100 countries that eat insects, and it's just a part of their culture.
I'll start doing
Mm.
some research on how to have a crickets farm.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
I'd like to see you do that, Martin.
We'll do that for sure.
You'd be in charge of the. You'd for sure be in charge of the marketing area, trying to get people to eat insects if you were capable
Yeah,
of doing it.
Yeah,
When
if
you were
I
short.
manage to eat a cricket, then sure I can
You
make
need to,
someone else eat a
you need to
cricket.
tell your story, man.
yeah,
You
we
need
can
to.
do some good
We'll make it
commercials.
emotional. We'll make it
Yeah,
emotional and all. You need to cry a bit.
I was about to
Cricket
throw
eating
up.
trauma.
I'm so happy now with my cricket protein bars, man.
We can even do some cookies. We can do some cereals.
yeah,
So we can. Everything would be protein, protein
yeah.
products.
And if you put protein on anything, it sells like crazy. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's
literally.
One question I had for Babs is that sure you can put protein on it, but you can no longer put the vegetarian or vegan tag on it, which is also for sure a big selling point.
I
To me,
don't
it's
think
not a
that's gonna
problem.
affect the market. Like in a
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of vegans and vegetarians that are vegans or vegetarians because of the um,
Inefficiency?
yeah, on
because
the
of the
impact on the
sustainable.
planet.
Yeah,
And when you explain and you teach about how this does help a lot and have a lot of proteins, that is the number one issue with people that are vegetarian and vegans. I don't think most people would refuse too much.
I'd hate to be a cricket right now with your
yeah. Like
explanation, man. You're
yeah,
you're shitting on cricket so much, man.
they're pretty
Have you
scary.
seen the Ants movie? The Disney Ants movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you hate
Uh,
them?
Don't you hate them? The ants?
The crickets.
Oh yeah,
Oh
but
yeah,
I think
yeah.
they're
the
locusts.
locusts.
Yeah, they're
Mm,
assholes.
they are assholes. I'm trying to think, man. If you're gonna get a bag of cricket flour, how many crickets go in that bag? Like, how many crickets do you need?
Dude, we have to experiment right now. We're starting this
A
company.
lot.
We have to
I think.
I'm
put
trying
our
to think.
heads in
Imagine.
the dirt.
How do you even farm a cricket? Have you ever tried to catch a cricket? It's like one of the
I
hardest
have,
things to
I
do.
have,
Hi guys.
Really? Wow,
I,
man.
I was in
Imagine being
a.
a professional cricket catcher. Like, that's your job. Like, bang, bang, bang.
It is hard. I was doing some construction in the south of Chile,
Yeah.
and it was summertime, and there was like a lot of tall grass. And if you walked through that grass, a bunch of crickets would just like jump out. So we started chasing them and started catching them. And I convinced a few
Wow.
friends to eat them, and they're not bad at all. Like they tasted normal. It's a
Wow.
pretty neutral flavor, and
Mm,
they're so efficient, and you can farm them, and it can be abundant because in 2050 we're going to be like 10 billion people, and we're going to need to feed all
yeah.
those people, and we can't keep putting so much stress on our earth, on our land. So
Yep.
we're going to have to be way more efficient because one of the principal causes of deforestation is cow farming. So if we want
Yep.
to protect our forests and feed these extra people, we're gonna need some alternatives. So one of those definitely is going to be insects. Another one of those I think is going to be ocean farming. Ocean farming is going to be much more common. Fish farming and multi-trophic aquaculture. So that's combining fish farming, that's combining mollusks, that's combining algae. So seaweed, not algae, seaweed.
Yep.
So yeah, there's so many cool challenges to solve, and I think
Yep.
Okay, I
Talking
have a
about the
question to go there.
All right. Wait, just to jump in before we
oh,
start, I just
the
messaged my
three of us
sister.
had a follow up to that.
I just asked my sister. She's going to go to the market today. We're going to buy some cricket flour. I just asked her, please buy some. There probably is at the market, right? And then we're going to start cooking because she's like an expert baker. Like her baking
Who?
skills are off the charts.
Who?
My sister. My
Right.
sister. So I'm going to get her to do that. And then we're going to bake shit with the cricket flour. And then that's the start of the marketing campaign.
Yo,
You
we
get,
gotta.
you get people to eat it, close their eyes, eat it, and taste the difference. And they're like, oh, this one's better? Bang, it's crickets, man. You
Gotta
didn't know
cross-
let's
that.
do a focus group. Let's give them 2 cookies and see which one they like better.
Oh, it's a good day to be alive, boys. Anyways, we continue.
You heard it
What were we
here
talking
first.
about?
No, yeah. No, just because Pops was saying how there's so many challenges to face. I wanted to ask you, if you've had or a bunch of small, or not necessarily small, but startups and businesses that have taken on these challenges and how they've been able to grow in today's market. Like, are they being paid attention to, considering the the industry they're in? How is it? Is it a good market to join now? A good industry? The energies one. How do you find it?
Well, energies I think is the safest one because it's been proved that renewables are working. They produce energy in good amount, and the cost isn't as elevated as traditional energy as non-renewable. So I think the energy sector is doing pretty well.
How about other project drawdown
But
initiatives?
okay, so a thing that affects a lot is cement. I don't know if you guys knew this, but cement is the second most used resource after water. We use cement for a bunch of things.
Wow.
And
Buildings and roads.
exactly. The bad thing about cement that a kilogram of cement equates to a kilogram of CO2, like the chemical reaction that goes into making cement is like 1-to-1 with CO2. So a kilogram of cement is a kilogram of CO2. And since it's the second most used resource, that's a bunch of CO2. I think it's about 8% of all world emissions is just cement. So that's a big industry, and
Wild.
that's a big challenge. And I've seen I've seen some companies that change their process. So instead of releasing CO2, they inject CO2 in their mixture and create calcium carbonate, I think is the whatever. It basically makes stronger the block. But the thing is, there's not a process yet to make the bags of cement carbon negative, but you can make cinder blocks that trap in carbon. But that's a very new technology, and they're probably a very tiny slab in the total industry. But I think if they invest in that and they make it grow, it's going to have a huge impact in that
Mm.
industry. And I don't know, I have a list of like cool companies that are doing stuff in different sectors, but I can't remember them
Right.
all by heart. But there definitely is something going on in every industry, but I don't think they're big enough. The biggest are definitely the energy sector, but the disruptors, the guys that are trying to reduce emissions aren't big enough yet. So that's the challenge, making them a bigger
Yeah.
presence in the market in food and transportation and energy and industry. So I don't know.
Okay, I have a question, but none of this conversation makes sense if we don't answer this question first. Why
Yeah.
is why is taking care of our environment important to you?
Answer that yourself, Martin. Why do you think it's important?
No, I have my answer, but it might be different than yours. That's why I'm asking.
Okay. So a lot of different things. So climate change, the increase of temperature, people think it's not a big deal. It is. It is a big deal. Increase in temperature is going to cause a lot of different consequences, like the melting of the solar poles. The ice caps. That's going to increase water level. That's going to cause a lot of climate migration. So there's going to be a ton of immigrants going from one place to another. That's going to cause food insecurity because there's going to be places with a lot more people. Resource insecurity, that's going to cause wars. So that's just like one thing that could happen, just the migration, because places are going to be affected by drought, and some places are going to be affected with more extreme weather conditions and sea level rise. So there's going to be a lot of movement and there's going to be a lot of pressure in certain areas. That's just one of the things that could happen. Permafrost is like a frozen dirt. It's basically frozen dirt that's in the poles that has in it a bunch of greenhouse gases trapped. And if that melts, it's just gonna emit more, and we're gonna get warmer and warmer and warmer. And basically, that's gonna have big consequences. Like when it was, we're right now in like 1.2, I think, degrees over pre-industrial
Yeah.
levels. If we get to 4 degrees, I remember reading this in a book. When there was 4 degrees above pre-industrial, there were crocodiles in Antarctica. Like that's the level of change we're talking about.
Mm. I'm pretty
So
sure 2 degrees is like the max that we can go, or if we go over 2 degrees,
yeah.
it's
So
terrible.
the Paris Agreement wants us to keep below 2, hopefully
Okay, but
1.5.
sorry, I just wanna like try to direct the question a little bit more because you've been saying how not taking care of our environment will cause other things to contaminate more and
Mhm.
worsen our environment. But again, why is important to not do that?
I mean, a lot of reasons. I could appeal to just being a good person, or I could appeal for your own comfort. But okay, so biodiversity conservation, that's one of the pillars we talked about. Super important because if we destroy the ecosystems, everything's going to go out of balance. We could have more pests. And basically, the things that surround you, you'll see in your lifetime how they degrade, how there's less forests, how there's, and basically
Yeah,
your
but
quality of life.
why taking care of that is important? That's my question.
I mean, I think if we don't do a great job, we will die. Like humanity will die, or
Okay.
a lot of
I
very
got the
few.
answer I wanted.
Yeah, like I wanted to go around it, but yeah, like we're screwed basically if we
Yeah, because
don't
I
do
was
it.
just trying to get that because a lot of people talk about it like being just a good person and being it's for our own safety, it's for our own benefit. It's not It's not for. I mean, it is also for other species, other things, the planet, etc. But it is for us first. Like if
Yeah,
we die tomorrow, the planet will go on, and it won't matter that much. We're doing it for ourselves as a species.
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a really cool exercise some guy showed me. It's called the map of the climate, which basically shows like the cause and consequence of more greenhouse gases. So it goes, okay, more greenhouse gases. That means there's going to be warmer temperature. That means there's going to be a rise in sea level. That means this and this. So you go down all the the causes and consequences. Another thing that happens if there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, the ocean absorbs CO2 and converts it into carbonic acid. So the ocean gets a little bit more acid the more CO2 there's in the atmosphere. So if there's a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, the ocean's going to get very acid. The pH level is going to drop. And basically, the microplankton and some microorganisms that use shells are not going to be able to produce their shells anymore because of the pH level. And they're basically the cornerstone of the trophic
Mm.
chain. So
Yeah,
basically, all life in the ocean is dead. Then comes Earth.
everything
So
falls apart,
everything falls apart. Everything is connected.
and we end up with human extinction.
And then after we die, and after a few years, Earth is going to be back to normal, and we just screwed
Okay, I have
ourselves, you
another
know.
question. What do you think about Mars, Project Mars?
Terraforming.
Dude, yeah.
I think before I like this question, but I think before starting with Mars, we have to go to the moon first. I think
You don't
the
think we've
moon.
gone to the moon?
I mean,
No,
what I'm referring is
terraforming.
to unlocking the moon. If you unlock the moon, you can unlock the rest of the solar system.
What do
Why
you
do
mean
I
Yeah.
by
say
unlock?
this? Okay, so I did a course in mining, and we had to investigate mining the moon, and it's super interesting because the poles of the moon have a bunch of ice on them. I didn't know this, but there's like a bunch of
Interesting.
ice
I didn't
in
know this.
the poles of the moon. And do you guys know what they use in rocket fuel? What's rocket fuel? Do you know that
I thought
the
it was
fuel
nitro, but
they use a lot of hydrogen, just hydrogen and oxygen. That's mostly the fuel they use in rockets. So if you could find a way to harvest that ice and do electrolysis with solar panels, you can basically create fuels for rockets on the moon. And what that means is that 90% of a rocket's weight is fuel. So you could go to the moon with less fuel and have more space to bring other stuff, fuel up
yep,
on the moon, and then you could go to another planet. The moon is basically your pit stop because you can fuel up on the
Right.
moon, you can bring more stuff, and the moon has less gravity. So it's easier to take off from the moon. So unlocking the moon means we
interesting.
can access Mars much more easily later on. And also, the moon gets bombarded with a bunch of meteors, so the moon has a ton of minerals on it, and it also has hydrogen three, no helium three, which is one of the main components you use in nuclear fusion. So if you can also harvest that and bring it back to Earth, nuclear fusion becomes even easier. So I love the idea of mining the moon, but there's some people singing.
Imagine
It's
looking up at the moon and seeing a city, or like that'd trigger me, man.
I that's what I was about to say. Like you have to do this very well, very sustainably, because imagine you start tearing apart the moon. I would hate to see that. I love the moon. It brings me a bunch of joy just to look at the moon and
I
see
would
it.
not hate that. I wouldn't hate that.
What? What's wrong with you, bro? What do you mean? It's the
I, I'm the
moon.
I'm the number one fan of interplanetary
I
civilizations,
mean,
and
it is
I'd
cool
love
to
to,
think like, dude, we're up there doing stuff, and it
I'd
is.
love to see like there's cities in Earth, we have cities in the moon, we have cities in Mars. I'd love to see that.
I'm just trying to think like. Whose property is the moon? Is the US going to be like, this is USA? That's
Now,
crazy shit.
but
I
yeah,
for, I
that's
forget the
another
politics.
topic. How do we do
Yeah,
it? It's another topic. But I'd love to see cities on the moon, cities in Mars, cities everywhere.
I mean, going going out of space definitely is going to be a player in being more sustainable. What I said about space mining, just leaving our planet alone. Just stop mining the earth, stop taking stuff from the earth and outsourcing it to outside where there's no life and there's just a bunch of resources.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty cool idea.
it's like when you're playing Minecraft and you don't touch the terrain about around your house. You go somewhere else to grab all the materials, and you come
Right.
back to your
Exactly.
house.
Yeah.
You don't
Wow.
mess
Hey,
with your home.
yo, that's wow. That's an incredible explanation to why someone
Yeah,
might not
right?
want to see a city in the moon.
I
Like,
mean,
it's not easy to say why you wouldn't want it, but just you do that in Minecraft. I've done it before. Like, you go so far away to get a tree. That's like
Yeah,
the
just so you don't mess
psychological.
the tree at your house. Yeah, but
and
yeah,
you could take that to earth, and a lot of developed countries don't want to see pollution in their country, so they outsource it to other countries and they
Mm.
do all the dirty
yeah,
work. So basically,
and
wanted to
not only
eliminate that for
pollution.
all of humanity and just go to outer space.
And what you just said is not only about pollution; it's also for like ethics. People, like they go mining in Africa and they don't know what's going on in Africa, and they have them practically like slaves. Uh, but in the US, they're just regular companies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like a easy way to clean to appear clean, and I think that would be at the end doing that, going to meteors or other galaxies or other systems to grab materials and come back. The Earth would just appear clean, but at the end we would just be messing up stuff somewhere else.
I mean, it
Um,
depends. Like, there's just meteors that formed from supernovas. They're just chilling, floating around. They're not doing anything. Like, nobody's gonna miss that meteor, and it could be from
Yeah.
Earth. So, but that technology is like, that's fucking rocket sciences. So, right, rocket
It's
sciences.
so sick,
Not,
bro. So cool.
Literally.
not easy, but I think that's awesome. So basically, if you're watching this, you don't know what you want to do in life, just search Project Drawdown. You have like 80 things you could do, or other things we've mentioned in this podcast. But there's a lot of challenges.
Otherwise, just send us an email at contact@cricketflower.com, and we will hire you.
We'll hook you up, bro.
We'll get you started right off. Just
That cricket
Oh
farming drip,
man.
we'll
Mm.
give it to
No,
you.
I love it,
We'll give it
bro.
to you.
Pabs, man, you're so knowledgeable on this. That's so good.
Thanks,
Like,
thanks, man.
well done, man. Well done.
Yeah,
no,
man.
that's also a
Mm.
great note to end in the call to action from Bubs to take a look at the Project Drawdown ways that we can. Um, yeah,
I don't know if we have show notes, but we could maybe somewhere in the description of the video just put in
absolutely.
some links to Project Drawdown, some other resources people can check out.
Yep.
Right below the cricket flower
Yeah,
ads.
and stay tuned for our cricket balls and cookies. They're
Yeah.
coming out soon.
First thing, link to the cricket flower. Maybe even you can buy a cricket t-shirt, and then Project Drawdown.
We're gonna start a GoFundMe for.
Under all the merch, under all the sponsors, there's the Project Drawdown.
Yeah,
In case
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't find it.
Priorities, guys. Come on.
Anyways, man. Martin, do you want to wrap us up today? Or Pabs, man. Or Pabs. You want to wrap us up,
Yeah,
Pabs?
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, a call to action. There's a bunch of things we can do. There's a bunch of challenges for us in the future. So I'm excited because everybody's going to play a part. There's no one solution to solving climate change, one solution for a circular economy. It's a bunch of solutions. So there's definitely a lot of things to be done. So I really want you guys to check out the links in the description. And thank you guys for having me and letting me talk about this. I think it talked a lot. Hopefully people didn't get bored with me talking so much, but
No, man.
No way, man.
I'm glad to talk about these things. We could do a part 2. I would be happy to. So remember to subscribe, leave a comment on the next
This guy's better than us.
topics you guys want to hear, and have a good one.
It's
Have
the
a great
best,
day.
the best outro we've had.
Yeah, it's better than us so far. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Cricket
Have a good
flower.
one.
Cricket flower. Remember.